Good evening. Welcome to the Milton, Massachusetts Warrant Committee meeting of March 11th, 2026. Karen, can you call roll to start the meeting?
We have Jay Fundling, Macy Lee, Nicole Boyson, Elaine Craighead, Lorraine D., Grace Doherty, Brian McGuire, Ronald Sia, and Cecile Yang. You have a quorum.
Okay, thanks. So for tonight, just to give you a outline of what we're looking at tonight, we're going to be having a presentation on I shouldn't try to read a agenda and talk at the same time. We're going to have a presentation on the Historic Buildings Bylaw. We have Stephen O'Donnell, the chair of the Historic Commission, I believe is the correct title. He's going to be speaking to us tonight. And I'm looking at the other things on the list. We have the solar energy articles. We'll discuss those and hopefully put them to a vote. I know Brian has a presentation he'd like to share with us. Uh, the school subcommittee is not on the agenda, except in the sense that sort of all of our town meeting articles are on the agenda. We're going to have the school subcommittee just give us an update of what they heard this morning at the school finance subcommittee meeting. Talk a little bit about just town finance overall. And then Atherton Fire Station is on the agenda tonight. It says discussion/vote. So we'll circle back to that, see if we're ready to vote. Um, Keeping in mind that we've only got a couple more meetings and a lot of votes to cast and a lot of decisions to make. So, with no further ado, I believe I will turn it over to, I'd like to discuss the historic buildings bylaw. Ron Sia has been the expert on this. Ron, would you like to introduce our guest and let them speak?
Yeah, thanks everyone. I think we had talked the proposed article last week at our prior town meeting. I'm sorry, our prior warrant committee meeting. And if folks recall, there is an article proposing a definition for demolition to get inserted into bylaw 163. So we had talked to Stephen about some of the concerns that Jay and I had a call with Stephen, and we shared some of the concerns that were raised at our prior warrant committee meeting. And I think Stephen, I think your committee had a meeting yesterday or Monday to
Monday.
go through some of those thoughts. And then also, I think, thinking of how can we try to address some of those concerns. I did send over some proposed amendments, which I believe you had a chance to look at. But
Yes.
let us know. I think there were, I don't want to rehash all the concerns, but there were concerns that broadening the definition of demolition or adding a definition of demolition that was broad, that included outright destruction of the whole building as well as portions thereof. That could put a lot of different projects and renovations within scope, and that could require property owners to, possibly go through a review with the historic commission. So there are some concerns there that it's a very broad, definition of demolition.
Yes. Thank you. Um, does the group have essentially a background on where we are and why we're here with this now?
I think it would be great for you to give the background, assume we know very little.
Okay. This is euphemistically called the delay bylaw. It's been in effect for many, many years, probably close to 20 years. And the objective here is to provide a means for protecting the historic character of houses, of neighborhoods, and of the town by trying to discourage demolition, if at all possible, in favor of an alternative. We can impose a 2-year delay on demolition under the right circumstances, which I'll outline very quickly in a minute. We cannot prevent demolition. We can postpone it in hopes of giving time for people to find an alternative to demolition, perhaps renovation, perhaps relocating the building. Well, how does one get into this? The bylaw provides that for buildings over 75 years old, which require a building permit involving demolition, that they be referred to the Historical Commission for review. Historical Commission reviews in two steps. The first is to determine whether or not the building is historically significant. If it is not historically significant, the commission is out. Now, certainly the majority of buildings in town are over 75 years old, and the vast, vast majority of those are not historically significant. So out of the buildings that are referred to us, the vast majority really don't come under our purview at all because of the lack of historic significance. If they are historically significant, then we would look at what is it that they want to do. If it doesn't involve the historic character of the house or destroying historic elements, go ahead and do what you want. If it does involve that, that would trigger a public hearing, at which time we would examine whether or not the building or the elements of the building are preferably preserved. Now, as an example, in the calendar year ended in June 2025, we had 10 referrals from the building department for buildings over 75 years involving demolition. 8 of those were declared not historically significant. We were out. The other 2 were declared historically significant, went to public hearings. Both had 2-year demolition delay periods imposed. About a month and a half later, one of them came back with revised plans to preserve the building, retain the architectural character, and demolish a small part of the building and add to it. That was the goal that we were trying to accomplish. We managed to preserve the building. The 10th one, when we finished and declared the 2-year demolition delay, the owner said, "Thank you very much. Now I have 2 years to decide what I want to do." All they wanted to do was start the clock running on their 2-year demo delay. Well, the issue with the bylaw at this particular time is that although there is a demolition permit definition, there's no definition of demolition. So does that apply a little bit of demolition, a total demolition, a lot? What we're trying to do is, in response to a building department question, could you please define demolition for us so we know what we're doing when we're examining these building permits, permit applications. So we put together a definition of demolition that we put it together in conjunction with the building commissioner, which doesn't differ a whole lot from the demolition definitions in other communities. But when you got it first, there were some discussions about being too broad, and certainly you could call it a broadening of the definition, but in fact, there was no demolition, there was no definition before. So what I'm looking at the screen is what we proposed. Pretty straightforward, which again was satisfactory to the commission and to the building commissioner. Having feedback from some of you, and again, I'd spoken with Mr. Sire and Mr. Funling the other day. Mr. Sire came up with a couple of suggested modifications to the demolition definition. Now, we don't get involved in new construction. We don't get involved in remove and replace you need to replace the porch railing or the back steps or the roof, or we don't get involved in any of that at all. We don't get involved in new construction at all. All we're trying to do is to preserve the historic character of the building, neighborhood, and town. What I'm looking at now are in red the suggestions that Mr. Saya and Mr. Fundley discussed with me the other day. We did have a commission meeting Monday night. We managed to gather a quorum on very short notice to discuss these. And subsequent to our meeting, I forwarded them also to the building commissioner. We would have no objection to the section entitled demolition shall not include, or if you will, exceptions to the demolition definition. We did have reservations about the substantial portion wording. Now, Mr. Funley reminded me that when you first got our proposal, it contained parameters. I think we had a 50% demolition, but I'm not sure whether it was 25 or 50. Those parameters appear in many other towns. The building commissioner said he didn't want to be responsible for trying to figure out what 50% of a building was or 25% of a building. His view and ours towards substantial portion suggests the same kind of issue. What is substantial? Is it 20? Is it 70? It's very nebulous. And it would seem that the exclusions in the lower section would really need to overlook the substantial. If it's not affecting those elements in the exclusions, then it's not affecting them. I think it might make sense perhaps for me to take some questions rather than just continue talking.
Yeah, maybe I can go first, Stephen. So first, thanks for explanation. It's great to have that perspective. Um, One question I have before we talk about the proposed amendments, when you say there are 10 referrals, those 10 referrals were sent over to the Historic Commission based on, do you know what kind of definition the building commission was using? Were they looking at outright total destruction of a building as demolition?
I would have to go back and look at them all, but when the building department asked us in 2023 to define demolition, we gave them a definition, and they were going by that definition. Although, as I recall, most of those 10 were total, but some of them were partial. I'd have to go back and look at them. But
Yeah.
again, 8 out of 10. And what we're seeing recently is typically 1930s, 1940s, relatively small houses on many of Milton's relatively small lots, ranches, capes that are going to get a second floor, or maybe they're going to be demolished and replaced. There is nothing historic about these houses at all.
Yeah, understood. And I think the concern would be if there were 10 last year with a very specific interpretation of demolition, which is outright destruction, then surely the number of referrals will increase dramatically if we use this new definition, because the definition includes destruction of the building or a structure or portion thereof, which could be a basic renovation. As we discussed, if you renovate a room, that could, trigger this type of review.
Well, perhaps, but wouldn't that be covered under the exclusions that have been proposed?
Certain renovations. I think that's why I'm trying to recap what we discussed to lead to some of these exceptions for the rest of the committee.
What I see in these exceptions doesn't affect our goals at all. I mean, obviously everybody interprets things differently. Um, I suppose I have the benefit of knowing what we've been doing over the last 8 to 10 years, when in fact the vast majority of our referrals involve buildings that are not historically significant. Um, as far as what I'm looking at here, and the consensus of our commission meeting the other night, these exceptions don't impact what we're doing at all.
Yep, understood.
If the warrant committee and the town is happy with these exceptions, that's quite fine.
Yeah, and maybe just for, I mean, you can read the language on the screen. Hopefully, everyone can read it. But the exceptions that we propose would exclude kind of general maintenance, repairing a structure that otherwise stays in a similar appearance and design, and then also we add an exception for expansions, as long as that expansion does not kind of take away from the historical aspect of the structure or the building
Right.
or the portion. So
Okay. One thing I want to throw in, Ron, you said we there a couple times.
me,
This, okay, yeah, this was your proposed wording, I believe.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
Not to, and so I see Brian and Elaine. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, so just so I understand, and I apologize if I missed this, but any house that's over 75 years has to go through this process, correct?
If the building permit involves demolition, yes.
Or like if you redo your kitchen, is that demolition? Considered
No.
demolition?
We have no interest, no control over the interior of a building at all.
Just
We're
exterior.
concerned about the historical character and the exterior.
Okay. So is it easier? I was wondering if it adds a delay to the process, because if somebody does something and if like so many houses in Milton are 75 years or older, if it delays their process to build something going through this.
It could, if they are going to impact the historic character of the building. Now, the first step, as I mentioned before, is determining if it's historically significant. The bylaw requires that decision to be made within 45 days of the time we get the referral from the building department. Again, if it's not historically significant, or if the work that's being done doesn't impact the historic character and the exterior of the building, we're out. The only time it would delay is if in the requirement for a public hearing and the determination of whether or not the building is preferably preserved. I don't recall an issue with a partial demolition, if you will, as opposed to a total demolition. The ones that go to the public hearing are almost entirely a total demolition of the building. So anything could happen. Is it likely? Extremely unlikely.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. O'Donnell, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Brian. Can you say that again? When you said you don't recall an issue with a partial demolition, I'm not sure what that statement meant.
I don't recall an issue with a partial demolition going to a public hearing, which might impose a 2-year demolition delay.
But Steve, I think the purpose of this article is to allow the building commission and the historical commission to bring a partial demolition to public hearing.
Yes.
Right. So you could, based on the definition of demolition that's being proposed.
Yes, could,
Yeah.
but highly unlikely that it would delay.
But I'm a little confused. Under the current, well, there is no definition,
There
but
is no definition.
under the current bylaw, it sounds like it's interpreted as total demolition. So when you say you haven't recalled an issue with partial demolition, is that just because it's not thought to be covered currently?
I don't recall ever having to go on a partial demolition, ever having to go to a public hearing to consider a 2-year demolition delay. When we've been faced with a partial demolition situation, it's virtually always a case of something not involving the historic character of the exterior of the building.
Brian, I think I interrupted you. This is your question.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just wondering if it might be if it delays somebody who it doesn't really it's not historically significant, if it would be easier to designate all the houses that are of historical significance in advance so that they don't have to go through the process. That's my end
Well,
answer.
that would be a terrific idea, but the Historical Commission doesn't have the means to survey every house in town in order to produce a list of what's historically significant.
Is there a
So
definition of historical different significance?
there is,
And I apologize
and that's
if you said it.
um, in the bylaw.
So I have the bylaw.
Yeah, under
Let's
definitions,
see.
it defines historically significant building right below demolition permit.
Brian, can you see this?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
See, thank you. So there's some judgment on it.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
Elaine?
My concern is that the language significant portion of is way too broad, way too vague, and that this is something that at town meeting is going to be discussed at length if we don't in some ways tighten this up.
well, again, the Historical Commission and the Building Commissioner are both not in favor of the terms substantial or significant for that reason. It's too open to interpretation.
Yeah, so on the article, this language, these two edits that I suggested, I had added them to hopefully give some guidance on what types of projects should be referred to. And if we remove it, I think that's totally fine. It would leave it to the building commission's discretion. This is my understanding, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. So the building commissioner and his team would have the discretion on when to refer something and send it to the historical commission.
Correct.
And what is the standard they use today? Is it just if they think it could be historic, or anything 75 years or older automatically gets referred?
Anything over 75 years gets referred.
Okay, so now it would be anytime there's a permit being pulled for a building over 75 years old, it would get sent to the historical commission.
Which involves demolition.
Demolition to the building, a structure, or any part thereof, except in theory, except for the exceptions we've defined
Correct.
below. Okay.
Yeah, so in that case, I think we should just take out a substantial portion of, because if it meets the exceptions, it's going to then be kicked out, no problem. if it's not, if the historically significant aspects of the building are found not to be, destroyed, if they're only dealing with part of the residence or building.
Yeah,
That
Elaine, that makes sense to me. I quickly propose this just to give us something to talk to.
yeah,
I'm not stuck on any of this language. The thought I had was if someone does renovate part of their home, and that renovation does touch on an aspect of the home which would be considered historic in nature, if they're not making a substantial change, I would think leave them alone.
absolutely.
What we're saying here, though, is any change should still get referred to the Historic Commission, and the Historic Commission would have that review time, which I believe is 45 days, and it would trigger that process. And I'm not saying the Historic Commission needs to disagree or object to the renovation, but at minimum, if they touch anything that impacts the historical nature, that there will be a review, and they need to factor in that time.
And again, that's a maximum of 45 days from the time we get it. And one of the reasons I think the 45 days was established way back was that typically meetings are once a month. So there isn't a significant delay period. But again, the commission and the building commissioner were not in favor of that substantial portion. And as Ms. Craig had said, I think the exclusions, if you will, pretty much cover small, large, or anything else.
Yep.
So
Elaine, does that
for
help?
purposes of this discussion, Ron, what do you think about taking out the substantial portion of a insignificant? I'm sorry, I didn't quite. Do you still think those are important things to have, or for purpose of this discussion?
No, I think we would just need to understand that if we remove them, that any renovation project that involves pulling a permit would get reviewed by the building commission and sent over to the historical commission for their assessment. And it could even
Unless
be a
they
very
were,
minor. It could be a minor.
unless they were those two bullet points that are excluded.
Yes, except for the exceptions,
Okay.
but any minor change that could impact the aspect of a historical building would have to get reviewed and go through the process. So I'm fine with that. I think it's something that, you know, makes sense.
Mr. O'Donnell, I don't see any hands raised, so I'd like to ask a question. Can you
Oh,
say more about, I guess I would phrase it as, what is the problem this is solving? What's motivating this? What have you seen examples of?
but
What specific?
go ahead. What's
I was about to say
motivating
specific examples or not specific examples, general examples. Just what's the problem this is solving?
it? It's solving the problem that the building department asked us to please define demolition. That what we've seen in recent years are not only requests to demolish entire buildings, but to do partial demolitions of buildings or to alter the historic character of the building in such a fashion that the historic character is destroyed. One example I can give very quickly, and I did mention this, I think, during our conversation the other day, was a late 19th century shingle style house in Milton designed by William Ralph Emerson, a prominent 19th century architect, lived in Milton, designed his own house in Milton. The house is off Adams Street on Milton Hill, and the new owner did not want to totally demolish the house, take it right down to the ground, but he did want to demolish part of it and then make such extreme changes to the rest of the house that the character of the house would be totally destroyed. And it was the building inspector who, um, after all of this started going, he says, I saw those plans. He said, that's going to absolutely destroy the house. Well, it's not a total demolition. It's a partial demolition, but it's having the effect of destroying the character of the house and potentially contributing to the destruction of the character of the neighborhood. Now, that's the most recent one that I can think of, and that, frankly, is what triggered the challenge to the partial demolition, if you will, because demolition is open to interpretation. Is it full or is it partial? So we were trying to come up with the definition of demolition at the building department's request in order to address this kind of situation.
Yeah, I totally understand the desire to have a definition of demolition. I guess, one definition of demolition would be complete and total demolition. So when I asked, what problems is trying to solve, I meant what problem is this trying, defining it as something other than complete and total demolition. What's the goal? And I think you answered that, so I appreciate that.
Well,
Again, I see no hands, so I'll continue to fill the air. I will say one thing that you and I agreed on that might be useful to the committee is that when this was passed by town meeting in 2017, the demolition delay, that discussion at town meeting, you were very clear that it did not cover partial demolition. That what town meeting voted on in 2017, you said very clear that this does not cover partial demolition, and that's what town meeting approved. And I think you and I agree on that. And so now we're looking to do something different, correct?
well, as I mentioned before, that was 2017. What has transpired since is more incidences of not total demolition, but rather partial demolition. And this isn't just Milton, this is everywhere. As I mentioned, the language that you see in front of you for demolition is very similar, and in some cases, virtually verbatim, for a lot of other cities and towns around who have had to make the same kinds of decisions in terms of reflecting or responding to changes in the community. It's also interesting, since you brought up the 2017. I'd like to read two sentences in the Warrant Committee's recommendation for that article. The first is, the changes requested are in keeping with practices in other towns in the Commonwealth. And the other one is, the purpose of the bylaw is not only to preserve historically significant buildings, but also to help ensure that the character of the town and the character of the neighborhoods is maintained. That's what we were trying to do in 2017. That's what we're trying to do in 2026 in response to changes in the world, I guess you could say.
Okay. I've got another question, or yeah, a question. So in that 2017 debate, so as you said, this doesn't prevent anyone from doing something. It delays it. If you want to, currently the bylaw says if you want to demolish your historically significant house, the most we can do is delay you for 2 years. And this
Mhm.
is, changing the definition of demolition. Now, in the town meeting debate, it was discussed that the point of the 2 years, and I'm paraphrasing, is to look at options to say, instead of demolishing your historic home, would you rather renovate it? Would you rather sell it to someone who wants to keep it? And so on and so on. And that makes sense to me if we're talking demolishing to the ground. But if someone wants to renovate their house, add a room onto the back, something like that, I'm having a harder time understanding the goal of the 2 year delay. Can you speak to that?
If someone wants to add well, Yes, I can speak to it. If adding a room to the back of the house is not compromising the historic integrity of the house, particularly as viewed from the street, this goes on all the time. We, I'm not sure how putting an addition on the back of the house or on the side of the house, perhaps, is going to affect the historical character.
Well,
That's
okay, maybe that
also
was a bit,
Jay. That's
maybe that was a
also
bad.
that would be excluded in the second bullet as long as that extent the addition or extension did not change the historical character.
Well, maybe, maybe not. I mean, I could have a four-season porch on the back of my house, and I want to take out that porch and put in a more substantial room. So maybe, maybe not. But Mr. O'Donnell, if my example was bad, then come up with a good example. Maybe the one you talked about a few minutes ago. What would the 2-year delay accomplish?
On the example I gave on the
On any
Roy
example.
Wilson house, well, again, the delay might indeed encourage the person to do something else. And if he chose not to do something else, if he was adamant that he was going to demolish the house or totally change the character of the house, then if he wanted to wait the 2 years, he could wait the 2 years. It's an encouragement. It's a discouragement, if you will. Um, if somebody wants to demolish it or essentially destroy the historic character, we can't prevent it. We can. The demolition delay is an incentive to find an alternative. If you choose not to find an alternative, so be it.
Yeah, and I guess, sticking with that example you gave, I don't know the situation. I certainly don't want you to say a name or an address or anything. Let's keep it sort of hypothetical. But I don't know the situation of that person. I don't know, the demolishing and rebuilding, was it because they had kids and had more kids and needed more space, and that was the way they were going to achieve more space? Um, if you have kids and this is what I discussed with my wife when we had on to our house. You only have kids in your house for so long, and the sooner you do it, the more you get to enjoy this new expansion with your children. So I don't know the situation of that person. Let's keep it hypothetical, but a 2-year delay can meaningfully affect someone's life. I guess that's not a question. Sorry.
I agree.
Well, I think that the example I gave is kind of unique, really, in what we've experienced, um, because it was not a total demolition, but it was effectively a demolition, excuse me, of the character of the building, and that is has been done or is being done, whatever. I cannot um, imagine somebody who wants to put an addition on the back of the house or take off the sun porch and put a two-story addition on the side of the house. I cannot see that triggering the kind of situation that you're suggesting.
Thank you. Uh, So the way we often do business at the warrant committee is we'll have a guest, we'll throw out any questions, and then we'll discuss them among ourselves. I don't see any hands raised and haven't for several minutes. So I think this, Mr. O'Donnell, I would encourage you to stay with us. More questions may come up. You may be able to clarify something that we're confused about. I would like you to stay with us. I think it might be time to switch to the discussing among ourselves portion of this,
Mhm.
and then
Okay.
perhaps going to a vote.
Jay, I just had one more question for. our guest.
Great.
Aside from the two exceptions that are shown in the amendment here, are there other situations that you've seen or you've heard about where um, someone has wants to do a project on their home or property, and if the property is historic in nature, you would say there are certain things they can do that your commission would, as a general rule, be okay with. Are there other groups or buckets of exceptions we could add here?
Not that I can think of. Um, it just hasn't been it just hasn't been an issue. I understand the word could, but could and realistically possible or probable are two entirely different things.
Okay, thank you. Should we go
Okay.
to internal discussion, Jay?
Exactly. Yeah, I'd like to, and I appreciate you staying on, Mr. O'Donnell, if you're able to.
Okay, that's
Yeah, I'd
fine.
like to turn to internal discussion. Who'd like to kick us off? Macy.
I found Mr. O'Donnell's explanations really helpful and answered a lot of the questions I had last week about the language about demolition. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I think he did a much better explanation than I could have. So very helpful. Thanks, Steve.
Well, he was the architect of this, right? No, no pun intended, even though this is a language.
I'll
Uh,
say something quick. My only concern, I didn't raise my hand, but my only concern is any delays, like anything we could do to try to speed up delays for somebody who had a house project that was a little bit delayed. That can be frustrating for people. And I know it's like it could happen or this happened, but that's my concern.
Yeah, Brian, I think that the purpose of the bylaw and this article is to insert the possibility for a delay for certain projects. So I think that's just
Same to reduce it.
no. I think it's to make it clear if you were going to,
Intentional. It's intentional.
that is the purpose of the bylaw is to add an up to 2 year delay for demolition of historic homes. And I think the article here is proposing that the demolition includes not just outright total demolition, but also demolition of portions of that home which are historic in nature. And I think it's kind of unavoidable, right? The goal is to delay certain types of projects, hopefully not every project. I think that's where we can try and net out is the vast majority of projects should not get delayed because they
Right.
should not be historic in nature. But if your house is 75 years or older, there is a possibility that when the building commission passes the permit over to the historical commission, they could find out that the house has historical aspects that maybe the homeowner or property owner wasn't aware of. And then you get into this process. As- I don't know how we can avoid that type of delay because that's the purpose of this article and the bylaw.
Thank you.
I'd like to encourage the members of the committee to speak up. For one thing, the other day, quite a few people had thoughts on this. And also because, in my subjective opinion, this is one that could go either way here at the warrant committee. It could go either way at town meeting. And unlike, I'll pick on like the solar articles. I think the solar articles are probably going to pass pretty easily and maybe don't require a whole bunch of discussion. I think it is incumbent on the warrant committee to discuss this and say why we're thinking what we're thinking. If we like it, I don't want to just go to a vote and 8 people vote one way and 7 people vote a different way, and that's the way we go. If people like it, I'd like to hear why you like it. If you don't like it, I'd like to hear why you don't like it. So I'm encouraging people to speak up, please. Mr. Tagney.
Thanks. So I guess based on that encouragement, Jay, thanks for that. I would say that I am opposed to this. I feel like there's already sufficient speed bump, and in the regulations the way it is already written, and there's already a fair amount of information that's subject to interpretation. And I think unless we're going to clarify with more precision what is historic or undertake an inventory of what's historic, like trying to create additional uh, information that's subject to interpretation, but maybe narrow down a little bit, I'm against. So I would be against this.
Hey, Jay, I just had a couple of thoughts. Um, in general, I think it is good to provide more guidance for any bylaw that has a standard. And if the standard is not defined, I think it's great to define it so people know what they can and can't do and what are the implications and processes. So in general, I think we should have a definition of demolition if there are these concerns raised by the Historic Committee and the Building Commission. I personally prefer less restrictions on homeowners and property owners just in general. I think people should be allowed to do what they want with their properties, within reason. But I understand the town meeting and that the town wanted to protect certain buildings that have historical significance. So, I try to separate my own personal thoughts on historic buildings from what the town wanted. But I do have concerns that this is a broad definition and it goes from whole building to portions, and portions could be just the entry steps or maybe the chimney. So I think that is a major you know expansion of what demolition means, and it has been. Um, my thought is the hope is that the exceptions I added here help give some homeowners clarity on what projects would not be delayed from this process. But um, yeah, as a compromise, I think it's reasonable, but I think like minds can differ. I think this is one where we each had to think about what do we think the town cares about more, preserving historic nature or individual decisions on their own property. And I think people can go either way, right? I think there's no right answer. It's just what do we think is more meaningful for this town? So I'm not sure if I would be for it or against it.
Yeah, and as a process note, I will just say that, you know, I mean, this committee can make any motion and do lots of things. I think the two most likely motions that we might make and vote on tonight are number one, we might move to um, accept the language as you've amended it and as we're looking at it right now. Number two, we might vote to recommend that town meeting send it back for further study, partially because I think, further study could mean, yeah, should demolition mean total demolition? Should demolition mean demolition of everything except the chimney? So, just as a process note, I think those are the two most likely motions that I think we might be making and voting on tonight. Elaine.
Yeah, at this point, because I think that there are potentially more exceptions that we could add to this that I think that Ron was trying to get at, and because the any portion thereof, or even significant portion thereof, if we put that back in, it it's I think it needs to be clarified in some ways. I think the scope of this is difficult. I do think though, that I appreciate the impetus behind this article, because if people are trying to do only partial demolitions, that is something you just alluded to, Jay, like I could say it's a partial demolition if I keep my chimney, or I keep my chimney in the foundation or whatever. And if that falls under not total demolition, then people are getting around, they've found workarounds from total demolition. So I appreciate the nature, the spirit of this a lot. I'm just not sure it's ready. And I would vote to table it.
Yeah, Elaine, I think that workaround would be you leave one wall, but you tear down everything else. And maybe that one wall is a back-facing wall. Then then effectively you can destroy the building and you would just say, I left something and you bypass the bylaw, I guess.
Lorraine.
Um, Again, I'm also like others, kind of unsure. I agree with a lot of what Elaine said. Um, I would just like to know more about what makes a house or a building historical. I mean, how much, I mean, there's some obvious ones in town because, Forbes, like a museum and stuff, but what would make the house historical? I think it would cause a lot of confusion, and the way it's written right now, it seems like it's could fall more into individuals' perception of it versus. I mean, I did see that this was put up before, but I still think it's a little unsure of because the house is over 75, got that. But as people were talking about doing partial stuff, but is the partial stuff, can you, how much is partial? Um, so I don't think it's a bad idea to put back for more description, but that's it.
Lorraine, is that a rhetorical question or is that a question you'd like Mr. O'Donnell to speak to?
No, I mean
It's fine if it's
it,
rhetorical.
yeah, it's rhetorical.
I will say there was one part of our discussion with Mr. O'Donnell earlier this week that I thought was very clarifying because it came to a point where I had one opinion and Mr. O'Donnell had a different opinion, and we saw eye to eye. We just had different opinions. Mr. O'Donnell, do you remember the example we discussed, which was like, I think it was like changing the siding of the house, and if it changed the siding of the house, which then I'll let you put it in words better than I could, but a situation where changing the siding of the house would change the historic nature. I think you and I had an honest difference of opinion there. Can you speak to an example like that?
Well, we did. Um, and what I said, I believe, was that in the past we've seen situations, particularly when aluminum and vinyl siding came in, that people stripped the architectural character, items of architectural character off the exterior of the house in order to simplify siding it. They took off the corner boards, the quoins, the window casings and trims, door casings and trims, and ran the siding right up to the window sash. And they essentially removed any architectural character on the exterior of the house. And if I remember correctly, your response was, so in other words, they wouldn't be able to reside their house. And that is certainly not the case. If you were going to reside the house, take off wooden clapboards and put up hardy board or whatever, leaving the rest of it intact, fine. But it's when you're stripping off those architectural elements in order to ease the installation of the siding. That's what I was referring to.
Thank you very much. I thought that was a great example when we discussed earlier, and I still think it's a good example. And you obviously can speak much more to architecture than I can, so thank you. I will turn again to the committee. If Lee Michael was here, he'd say, Jay, stop talking to the committee and move to a vote. So I'll turn one more to the committee. Does someone want to express their feelings on this? If not, I will entertain a motion. As I said, two motions we might consider are accepting the language as we saw it on the screen. Another motion we might consider is we recommend it sent back for further study. So one more call for people to discuss their feelings on that. Nick,
I was ready to make a motion if you're ready to hear it.
I am.
I'd make a motion to refer this back to the Historic Commission for additional refinement.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. I am opening up this motion for discussion. The motion is to send it back. Usually the wording we use is send it back for further study. So, is there a discussion on the motion to send it back for further study? Seeing no hands, Karen, can you do a roll call vote?
Nicole has her hand up.
I'm sorry. Nikki.
It's okay. I used a real hand, then I gave you the fake hand. I agree with this. When we do that, I mean, obviously my opinion is going to be reflected in my vote, but when we send it back for further study, do we make specific recommendations about the aspects that we wish to be further studied? Because otherwise, I think we're in just some big circle.
That's a very good question. The official answer is town meeting says send it back for further study. The unofficial answer is I will encourage discussion at, just as we've had discussion here about our concerns, I will encourage discussion at town meeting to say, okay, town meeting, if you want to send this back for further study, what do you want to see? What do you want different about this? So informally, they listen to the discussion at town meeting and take that to heart.
I think, can I add to that, Jay? I think whoever writes the warrant committee comments on it should put that in there, what the issues are.
I would think the comment should at least flag what we had concerns with. I don't know if the comment would instruct the other bodies on what they need to do, but I think we can at least express this is why we feel that it should be sent back or not. And yeah, I mean, common sense would say you read that and you're like, okay, I understand what warrant committee was concerned with.
Thanks. I like that idea. Yeah, it's not our job to tell town meeting what to do, but our opinion in sending it back could be frustrating for them if we don't give them some thought as to why. And I know everyone loves to watch our meetings continually on a loop, but it would be nice for them to have a paragraph so they don't have to wade through it.
Yes, certainly. Mr. O'Donnell, I assume, will speak to this at town meeting, and I will also speak to this at town meeting, and anyone else who wants to will. So any more discussion about the motion to recommend this be sent back for further study? Okay, Karen, can you do a roll call vote?
Yes, may I ask who seconded the motion? Was it Lorraine?
No, it was me.
Elaine. Okay, thank you. All right. Macy,
Yes.
Nikki,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Abstain.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
and Jay.
You're on mute, Jay.
Jay?
Abstain.
Okay, the motion to refer back carries.
Okay, I'd like to thank Mr. O'Donnell and also Ms. Hall for coming to us, and we appreciate your input. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is Atherton Fire Station. It says discussion/vote. Now, we've discussed this a couple times. We had the fire chief in 2 days ago who answered quite a few questions for us. And also, just being blunt, we've only got a couple more meetings before we've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. We've only got a couple more meetings before we've got to have this warrant wrapped up. If people feel, first of all, I'll open it up to discussion of the Atherton Fire Station. If people feel we're ready to vote tonight, someone could make a motion. Now, keep in mind what we would be voting on and what town meeting would be voting on is approving $1 million for the study of the Atherton Fire Station. And we all know what plans they have in mind and what plans will presumably be studied. Is there discussion about the Atherton Fire Station, specifically, you know, discussion in general, or if one of you wants to speak up and say we should not vote tonight and here's why, you can say that. I'm opening the floor up to discussion.
Um, I believe do we have any outstanding questions? I don't think we do. I think we got everything answered for the most part. Right. Wi-Fi bays. Was there any talk of raising it? I mean, we had a number of questions and I think we got them all answered. So it seems to me that we're ready for a vote, but I just want to make sure that there isn't something that I missed that people are still wondering about.
Karen, are you able to share the article on the screen?
Sure, give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's the diagram of all the equipment. That's what you were looking for, but I mean, that's just something for the presentation at a town meeting, right? It's not necessarily, it wouldn't impact our vote. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, you can see it on the screen. The proposal again is to put $1 million to architectural engineering and project man to design the fire station. I will entertain a motion from the floor.
I'll make a motion that we approve the article or that we recommend a yes vote on the article.
Yeah,
I'll
approved
second
as
it.
written.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Karen, can you do a roll call vote?
Sure. Is Macy here?
I believe Macy had to drop.
Okay, so Nikki,
Sorry, yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
and Jay.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Okay. So to tell you what I'm seeing for the rest of the evening, we have Brian talking about the solar articles. And after that, I want to talk a bit about town finance at a high level and then hear from the school subcommittee what their current status is, and then do a bit of looking ahead to future meetings. Brian, are you ready to discuss the solar articles? I believe you had a presentation, which I'm embarrassed to admit I didn't look at. I should have just kept my mouth shut. Do you have a presentation you'd like to share and say more about the solar articles?
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay. I went ahead and tried to answer my own questions. So I'm doing a bad job here. Sharing. Here we go. Um, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay. Basically, I want to see the economics on the solar panels. So, it is good. It's economically good for the town to go ahead with the lease option. Um, I did a net present value on it. Grid power is costing us about 14 cents a kilowatt. Solar, it would take 9 cents off solar. There's a 2% increase every year. And basically, the total annual savings, well, I should bounce back. I was able to get a full year's worth of data for the library. I was only able to get 1 month worth of data for the animal shelter, which I just used and extrapolated for the entire year to get a savings on that. And the town hall, I did not get, but Nick seemed to think that that was unlikely that they would do that. So basically, um, it would be total annual savings based on what we think that they use for kilowatt hours of about $28,000. 20-year economics is a net present value with 2.5% escalation. And what they would charge us, what they'll charge us, along with electricity costs, 5% borrowing rate, it'd be about $350,000 would be the net present value of that. So my other question was, so based on that, it looks like it's the right thing to do. And it also helps, which I don't have in this, it does help our climate goals for the town, which is very good. But I also want to know what was the cost of ownership if the town bought it instead of leasing it. And I put a lot of work into this, but I have the sizes of what the solar systems would be, what the estimated installation cost would be. So for both the library and the animal shelter, it would be about $700,000 to buy equipment, what I'm estimating at, to buy equipment to put solar power on those buildings. There is a SMART program in Massachusetts where we would get money back. So that's good if we put it in. If you lease it, you wouldn't get that money. The leasing company would get that money. I'll get into that, what the detail is on that. Oh, bad formatting here. Basically, solar systems receive a payment for every kilowatt hour of electricity produced for a fixed period. So incentive levels vary by project. But again, I mentioned that if the town leases the solar system, the developer receives the smart payments and they get money based on that. And I believe that was going back, it was about $25,000. So significant. So if we buy at ownership assumptions is if the electrical price is 14 cents per kilowatt hour, we would get all those savings. The same assumptions, 2.5%, 20 years. They seem to be sized to get 70% of the building electrical use, not the whole thing. The cost of the watts, I have another thing in here significant. Oh, the other big thing is there is a federal incentive program that right now that's going on that we would get 30% back on the cost of the system. So for $700,000, we would get $214,000, which would drop it to $500,000 roughly. Maintenance costs are estimated to be 1% on solar projects. And estimated annual savings that the town owns the systems is 46.5 per year. So I have an Excel spreadsheet on this too. I don't know if anybody wants to delve into that. But basically, net present value. Let me go back. Did I get that right? Yeah. I'm sorry. If you do nothing, there's no value to it. If you do a solar lease, the net present value over 20 years is $350,000. If you own the solar, the net value is $810,000 is what I recommend. So owning definitely seems to be the way to go for me. But there's a struggle with that. It's struggle you have to put a lot of money up front, but you get more back. And that's it. So I'm a little nervous about the fact that the language calls leasing. And there are a lot of companies that run around and they say, we want to lease, we'll put in a solar system and you lease from us. And it's a little bit, anytime you lease something, it's like a car, it's always cheaper to buy the car, actually. Someone's making money off of that. And that's what you see. If you go back to this, someone's making $460,000 over 20 years. So that's why they want you to lease. And I get nervous because I think there's two incentives. It's easy to lease. You don't have to manage it. And it's also less money up front. So that is something that the town has to get by to say that they have to go through and do a warrant and stuff. But I do think they should look at it. My thought is, my opinion is, it's going to be easy to lease, in that the select board somebody should be looking at buy options, since it's a significant amount of money. So I came up with other language to have as a warrant. And basically, I don't know if you guys got any of this, if this was sent
Brian,
around.
can I?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I did not send around your presentation. Can I interrupt though? Because
Yeah.
when I copied you on an email to Mr. Milano this morning, and Mr. Milano confirmed that currently they can buy solar, and under these changes they can buy solar. These changes will give them the option to buy or lease. So
I guess I wanted to make it for sure. I came up with language because I wanted to make it certain that they actually do look at the ownership of it. I mean, they can do it now, but they don't, and it seems like it's the right thing to do. And that's I came up with language before. Obviously, Jay looked at that afterwards. That would say that the select board can look at purchasing solar system, which you don't really need to have this, is what Jay is saying, because they could do that now. Correct, Jay?
yes,
That's the point of
yes,
that.
yeah. I appreciate the work, but I guess I would say I'm not thrilled about introducing language we make up. If they weren't able to buy and we were putting in language that said they could buy, I'd be a lot more inclined to be excited about that. But that that that's my view, is I'm not thrilled about changing the language. Sorry, I didn't mean to catch you by surprise with this.
No, you didn't not catch me with surprise, but no, I know. I just think I think it kind of, I think like leasing is an easy way out, and it's not the most
Yeah.
economical one for the town, especially a town that seems to
I
have some
guess
money issues.
what I would say is, and maybe this will get to what you want. I mean, you've done the work on this. When I get up in front of town meeting and talk to these issues, I will stand up and say, this gives the town the option to lease, but buying is much more economical, and the town should absolutely keep that in mind. I'll say that. I'll share your numbers, once we've had them checked. I don't know if that helps at all. Standing in front of town meeting saying, guys, please. Okay, I'll stop babbling because I see Lorraine and Larry both have their hands up. Lorraine?
Yeah, I mean, this might be a silly question, but I'm assuming that the structure of the buildings, I know the animal shelter's new, but we have solar here. That wasn't a problem in my house because we had a new roof. But we have neighbors that wanted to do solar, but the company said they needed to repair their roofs before they would put it on, which again added an extra cost. So I was just wondering structurally, because I know some things in the town hall, windows have to be replaced and, different stuff structurally has to be replaced. Do we think anything is going to be, you can lease these or own these, but you have to get paid this much money to have the roof secured or whatever?
That is an unknown for the library.
I do see
The
Mr.
animal shelter.
Milano. I
Well,
will say Mr. Milano has joined us and his hand is up, so
oh,
maybe he can
okay.
address that.
The animal shelter was built to be able to take solar on the
Mhm.
roof. The library, it's unknown. So that would be part of
Okay.
that has to get added. I guess it's unknown if we take it.
Okay, Mr. Milano?
Yeah, no, Brian nailed that. I agree. Animal shelter was designed for it intentionally. Fire headquarters, obviously, brand new building designed for it intentionally. Town hall has solar on the roof already. So the purpose of including that in the authorization was, if and when those panels reach end of life, that we're prepared to go through this process. The library is, again, probably the more open-ended one because that building is, that roof has already got 10, 15 years on it. Do we really want to put something on it that's going to have to stay on it for 20 years? So that is an open discussion item. The provider we've been talking to is interested. It does pencil for them to put it on the library. It's really balls in our court to verify on the structural side and the roof warranty and all that. So that kind of summarizes those four potential properties.
Thank you very much. There
Well
was a
said.
hand up
Somebody else.
previously that went down.
Yeah, yeah, I was just deferring to Nick, but so the whole lease versus buy discussion, it doesn't. I mean, is that really? You know what? I think I'm good.
Jermaine?
If you speak to it, Jay,
Yeah.
and we include something in the comment, I think we're probably covered there.
Yeah, I'll
Sounds good.
speak to it. I don't know if that's going to
Yeah,
make the difference between voting a yes or no on this.
I wouldn't think so,
Uh,
but it'll
I
probably come up.
think
I mean, I'm sure someone would have that question. I can imagine.
yeah.
You know.
So we might. So I've mentally lumped 38, 39, 40, 41, and 42 all together in my brain as these are all solar and energy things. Uh, so I think I'd like to go through them one by one. Karen, can you show them one by one? I'll ask for discussion on each of them. Again, if Lee Michael was here, he would tell me not to, but he's not, so too bad.
You want to start with 38?
38. Yes. Brian, are you ready to talk to the nuances and differences of these five articles?
Yes. Basically, I got to go back to my other presentation.
If not, Mr.
But
Milano might. That's what we pay him for.
yeah, the first one is the entering. We can enter into agreement for purchase that it authorizes the select board to enter into agreements for the purchase of electricity or solar credits from any renewable energy facility. And basically, I think that's not uncommon in towns, and that's a good thing to have. That they have that ability to do that if they want to.
Okay. Any discussion on this? All right. Rather than us all looking at each other virtually, Brian, do you want to take the initiative on making motions?
I make a motion to accept Article 38 as it's written.
Seconded.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Karen, can you do a roll call vote?
Can. Nikki,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
Jay.
Abstain.
Motion
Okay,
carries.
39.
Cool.
39.
Getting there.
I think that was, well, yeah. Mr. Milano, can you say in 15 seconds or less what Article 39 means?
Sure, yeah. So renewable energy facilities are taxable. And so the providers typically seek to enter into a pilot agreement so they can spread the burden of that tax over the course of the lifetime of the agreement rather than have it be a huge tax bill up front that depreciates very quickly. So it's just spreading their risk over a longer period of time.
I'll be the first to say I don't 100% understand, but well, maybe I shouldn't have
Well,
said
they
that,
can
but
tax the
well, I'm going
solar.
to abstain, so who cares?
Think of it like a
Um,
motor vehicle excise tax bill where you get the sticker shock in year one, but by year 3 or 4, the prices come way down. So the providers seek to spread the taxes that they'll pay over 20 years rather than kind of in a 3 to 5 year window of fast depreciation and a high cost.
Can you do
Great.
that to my car, Nick?
No comment.
So
Um,
is this the leasing company? Like the providers, they're leasing the solar panels to us and they have to pay a tax? Is that how that works? Like who's being taxed?
Yeah, we would be entered into an agreement to purchase the power from an entity that own the panel, so that the owner will
Yeah,
be taxed.
I get it.
For
They're
they'll
collecting.
retain ownership of the panels. We buy the power generated by them.
I see. Yeah, they're collecting the payments and being taxed on that. Okay, that makes sense. I get it.
okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to accept
Brian,
Article 39 is written. Did you hear me?
I'll second.
great. We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Okay. Karen, can you do a roll call vote?
Nikki,
Hmm.
was that yes?
Yes, sorry, I keep muting so you don't have to listen to my cat meowing.
Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
Jay.
Abstain.
The motion carries.
Okay. Can you show us Article 40? I think I can summarize. The next three are all transferring land from general purposes to general purposes plus solar. The first one is the town hall area, which includes fire headquarters and town hall. Any discussion on this? Brian, would you like?
Motion to
There's no.
accept Article 40.
Yeah, I guess recommend that the town vote to transfer the parcel shown on the town of Milton, blah, 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 blah. Think it's clear what we're voting on, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
We
So
have a
they can
second?
lose the land. Yeah, I make a motion to accept Article 40.
Alex.
Yeah, I was asking for a second. Thank you, Lorraine. Any discussion? Okay, Karen, please.
Nikki,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
Jay.
Abstain.
The motion carries.
Okay. Article 41, similar to the previous article, but talking about the library property. Brian, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept Article 41. Allow them to put solar on the library.
I'll second that one also.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Nikki,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
and Jay.
Abstain.
The motion carries.
Great. Article 42. I'm already thinking like, can the town moderator have voice votes on all these? I don't know. That's
This
up to
is
her.
for the animal shelter, basically transfer the land. I don't know why the Board of Health owns it or runs it, but it's the way it is. But basically to same thing. So I make a
I
motion to
think-
accept Article 42.
Yeah. Yeah. That's trivia. Okay. Thank you for the motion, Brian. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. Motion is second. Any discussion? Okay, Karen, can you do a roll call vote?
Nikki,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
and Jay.
Abstain.
The motion
Okay.
carries.
Thank you, Brian, for your work on that. The next thing I'd like to, and this gets in the generic other non-budget articles part of the agenda. One thing that we have coming up that we haven't discussed that, well, it's probably the biggest thing we haven't discussed. I mean, we've discussed most things, is the Community Preservation Committee wanting to do work on Wharf Park. We've got scheduled for that on the agenda the next meeting, which is a week from yesterday. It's Tuesday, and then the meeting after that. Now, the meeting on Tuesday is mostly going to be talking to the school committee and school administration about the school budget. I was emailing people today trying to figure out. I mean, I'm of two minds on this Wharf Park. I think it's a big deal and we should air it among ourselves as soon as possible. But it might be such a big deal that it would take up too much time in this meeting that we have dedicated to meeting with the school committee. What I'm thinking now is that we'll have the guests from the Community Preservation Committee come on Tuesday, present about their thoughts about the Wharf Park. We'll discuss it 30, 40 minutes, and then move on to discussion with the schools. I think that'll work. I would encourage I'll encourage our experts on this issue to maybe send out some preview information for us so we can be ready for the meeting on Tuesday to make it productive. Okay, I'm sort of rambling at this point, but just to say that our meeting on Tuesday will have two big issues, one of them being the schools and the other one being the Wharf Park, and we'll start with that and try to get a good discussion going with the thought that we'll probably wrap up that discussion the following week. I will say that the rest of the articles, the rest of the issues that I think we're going to talk about all either directly or indirectly relate to school finance. So, Ron, if you'd like to drop, that's your choice. I know you're recusing yourself of school-related things. The next thing I'd like to say is sort of on the big picture town finance bucket. The select board discussed, and Mr. Milano, well, I'll call him Mr. Milano if I need him to chime in. There is $500,000 in free cash that we sort of haven't decided what to do with. Mr. Milano was discussing it with the select board earlier this week. One choice might be to, in some form or fashion, transfer it to the schools and have them put it in their circuit breaker stabilization account. If you don't remember what that is, you're forgiven. Think of it as a savings account. Another option is that it could be placed in the special ed stabilization account, which was created by town meeting last year and is a fund of money for when special education emergencies come up. And in order to spend that money, it needs the approval of the school committee and the select boards. There's some external supervision of that outside of the school committee. I think I can certainly characterize the select board's discussion as they're more inclined to put money into that than to give it to the schools to put it in their account. Another option is to do neither of those and take that money and put it into, I'd ask Mr. Milano, should it go into a capital stabilization account? Where should it go? That it would be useful maybe to help alleviate the snow and ice deficit that we had this year, maybe for other reasons. I believe all of you were sent a memo I wrote on this topic 2 weeks ago. I am 1/15 of the Warrant Committee. My opinion on this matter is no more or less valid than any of yours. But I shared my thoughts on that in that memo. One reason I'm bringing this up is because, it probably will be discussed next Tuesday when the school committee comes and visits us. It might be discussed at a separate meeting specifically to talk about that issue between the school finance subcommittee and the select board finance subcommittee and me. And some, if some of you have strong feelings and strong opinions and want to share them, please do so. Uh, and it may come up on 2 weeks from now when we're sort of making our final touches on the budget. What I'm imagining is 2 weeks from now, we'll be finalizing the budget. And this issue that I'm discussing right now is probably one of, if not the only, open question that we may be deciding. I'm hoping that if it's still an open question by the time that meeting rolls around, that we'll have representation from the select board and the school committee sitting there right with us so they can give us their input, maybe give us their blessing if they so choose. Um, it's certainly best to when we go to town meeting with the budget, it is the warrant committee's budget. But it's certainly best for everybody if we go in with the warrant committee's budget and the select board and the school committee agree with it or at least don't strongly disagree with it. So that's why I'm saying if it's still up in the air, I'd like them at our meeting 2 weeks from now when we're making these final decisions. Mr. Milano, you don't have to chime into that, but if you have something to add or something that I misspoke, you're welcome to.
No, thanks, Jay. I think you did a great job capturing kind of the state of play on it. I appreciate it, and I just to put a number behind the snow and ice deficit for the transparency we discussed last night at select board. We're looking at about a $1.5 billion deficit right now. We have any number of pathways with which to erase that deficit, but it does include potentially at least impacting free cash, if not appropriating from at least future free cash. So that is certainly worth keeping as part of the consideration. So I appreciate you flagging that issue specifically, and I'll prepare kind of a summary of what the deficit is and pathways to close that and the options that the town has to do so and the timing of that.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, Nick, $1.5 million deficit. Does that mean is that a school issue? Are they on budget? I'm kind of confused.
Sorry, it's our snow and ice deficit for what snow and ice operations have cost us this fiscal year. So it's
Gotcha.
On the town side of the house, but it's the deficit for snow and ice removal
Weekend
across
storms.
town. Yeah.
My question actually is the school budget this year on budget? Does anyone know?
The year we're in, FY26?
Yes.
The year we're in.
I don't know if Nick knows.
Does Elaine want to respond to that or Nick?
No, they didn't discuss it in the last few finance subcommittee meetings. They're focused on, as they should be, I think, right now, they're focused on getting the budget to us and getting the presentation done for us. But I haven't heard anything about whether they're on budget or not.
Yeah. I mean, what I'd heard as of, well, it was a month or two ago, was that yes, they were. Yes. I haven't heard anything to the contrary.
And that ties out with what we've seen in their Q2 report is available. They're approaching that, at the end of the third quarter, they'll provide a further update, but they've remained on track to be on budget.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess in the spirit of keeping everybody up to date, another thing that was discussed at the select board meeting was that due to various positive recent developments, specifically, I believe it's the Blue Hills Technical School bill and our insurance bill, not health insurance, but every other kind of insurance, we're $350,000 better than we were expecting to be. The select board and Mr. Milano discussed spending, I know I'm sort of stealing your thunder here, Mr. Milano, spending $250,000 on it. Specifically, that's to hire the police IT person to help them with their body cameras, et cetera, that we've discussed. And the other expenses were one-time expenses to the tune of $250,000, which I think still leaves $100,000 better that they don't have plans to spend. I guess I would say, in my opinion, you don't need to spend it well, that's just my opinion. Mr. Milano, was that a good, very short description of recent developments?
It is, and feel free. I know I sent you a kind of the Cliff Notes version, but feel free to share that with the full committee if that would be helpful. And I'm happy to
Oh,
speak to it in greater detail if and when you'd like me.
yeah, I should forward that email. Thank you for saying that. Um, okay. So that's sort of the budget overview. Again, I'll be discussing the fate of the 500,000 in the near future, and please let me know your thoughts on that, especially if they differ from mine. Now I think the main thing left is the school subcommittee. Might want to give us an update of any recent developments. Turn it over to Elaine.
Yeah. So this will be pretty quick. The I attended the finance subcommittee for the schools this morning by Zoom, and what they were doing was voting to recommend fee changes in three key areas. Increases, they discussed whether they just kept them the same or they increased these three areas. They were transportation, student activities, and clubs, including sports, um, and building use. So they voted to approve increases in two of those areas. The bus fees, well, this is a recommendation for the full school committee to vote on tonight. They've either already voted on it or they're voting on it now, or they'll vote on it very soon. They, the finance subcommittee voted to recommend to school committee that bus fees be raised by $40. They had lots of different options from $25 to $100 in terms of raising the fees, and you could see how much money they would generate. By the way, none of these increases will actually will actually reach the full cost of what it costs to offer transportation, student activities, etc. But they'll come, it comes closer. Anyway, so the bus increases, they voted to recommend $40 increase with no change to the activity fees. And I'll say a little something more about that in a minute. And they also voted to recommend a 10% increase in building use, rental costs for using the buildings. The reason they raised the bus fees $40 was that there was some concern about fuel surcharges going forward, which I didn't know this, but the transportation companies, in this case First Student, passes along any surcharges in fuel costs above and beyond a certain amount back to the schools. And as we know, gas prices have increased. They probably will continue to increase. So that's what they did with that. They decided that the bus fees and the building use fees were wider spread. They were spread across all the schools. Raising the student activity clubs and activities fees would only affect the high school. And they wouldn't generate very much money. For every $5 increase in student activity fees, and they looked at 5, 10, 15, and $20 increases. Right now it's $25 a club. They would realize less than $4,500 from each of those $5 increases. So they decided to increase the bus a little bit more as it's shared more widely, and not touch the student and activity fees. That took the lion's share of the hour-and-a-half meeting this morning. And the last part of the meeting, they reviewed the presentation for us for when they visit next week on the 17th. I'll say this, Jay, when you were talking about the agenda for Tuesday, they already have a substantial number of slides in that presentation, and I have sent them the questions that I received from various members of the Warrant Committee. So they will probably have to add slides to address those questions, or at least add information to certain slides to address those questions. And it seems to me like it's going to be take up a very long time. And so I wouldn't want the other presenter on Tuesday to get shortchanged, and I wouldn't want to be in that meeting past 10 o'clock because I know other people on this committee get up early like I do. But in any case, I don't know what you want to do with that information, but I just thought I'd mention it.
Thank you. Thank you. When yeah, the email I sent around to various people today about the other presenter, and I was suggesting, would that take less than 45 minutes? I might pull that back and say, it would be a hard stop at 7:30. I would like to at least have that other issue, at least aired, at least have us know what's going on with it. But a hard stop at 7:30, maybe even 7:20. I appreciate that, Elaine. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's about it that I have for now.
Thank you. Did they discuss the questions we brought up, or?
They did not have time to get those questions, to get responses for the questions. Although they did note in their discussion of the budget, they said, oh no, in their discussion, the presentation, they did say, oh, some of the questions that we got from our subcommittee for the schools, they were already addressing in the presentation. But I have a feeling that not everybody on the subcommittee has looked at those questions yet. And some of the questions were substantial, long. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, so if some of us were inclined to cheat, could we watch that meeting from this morning and get a preview of, I'm serious.
Yes. Oh, sure. If you got a spare hour and a half lying around that you
Well,
want to use it for that, please do.
well, you said the lion's share was talking about the fees. So if we cut to the last,
Oh yeah, if you
I
get
don't
to
know.
that last little portion, you'll see how many slides. It was in the 30s for the number of slides they have right now. It's around 35. They were talking about moving some to, I forget what they were calling it, but basically it's an appendix or an addenda for us to look at later. And yet I know they still would have to add slides to address some of the questions that members of this committee had for them.
So it sounds like they didn't go through the presentation, really,
No, not
this
exactly.
morning. Okay.
No, you can see it because they looked at the actual PowerPoint, but they were just clicking on slide after slide. Oh, this one stays, this one could go in an appendix kind of thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And yeah, I guess I don't know if I'm saying this to you or the world or whatever. We will want to keep in mind, I mean, our job is the total dollar amount. What total dollar amount do we approve or not? Secondary, this $500,000 side issue also is sort of related. Um, I do want to keep in mind, I have to keep telling myself I'm not an expert in curriculum, staffing for schools, things like that. They're the experts in running the schools. We're sort of overseeing are they getting an appropriate amount? So hopefully keeping that in mind will keep the discussion contained. Um, any questions for our school subcommittee right now?
I just want to
Okay.
thank the people that sent me their questions, and everybody got it to me before end of business yesterday. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. So I appreciate everyone coming to this second meeting of the week. I think we got some good stuff done. Um, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Jay, can I ask one
You're
quick
on your.
question?
Oh, yes, yes.
Sorry. The CPA plans, is there a way that they could, you probably won't have that meeting now on Tuesday, but can they just send around what their plans are before so we can just take a look at it? and prep?
Yeah, I would. I'll ask Cecile and Ron, whom I already kicked off. Cecile and Ron are the experts on this. Whatever you can get for us to get our hands on about this that we can look at outside of a meeting would be great. So,
Thanks.
yes, I think we're on
I'll
the
make a
same
motion to
wavelength.
adjourn.
Great.
Second.
Okay. Wave at the camera if you agree. Okay. Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Night.